Why do most people fail at changing their lives? Seriously, think about it. Every year, people say, "New year, new me. Tomorrow I'll start. This time I'll change everything." And maybe, for a few days, they actually do. They wake up early, work harder, exercise, eat healthy, and then, slowly, everything collapses. And eventually, they think, maybe I'm just lazy. But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is the way you're trying to change? There's a Japanese philosophy that answers this. It's called Kaizen, and its core idea is surprisingly simple. Small improvements, repeated consistently, can change your entire life. Modern self-improvement is extreme. People try to completely change overnight, rebuild their personality in a week, become perfect instantly. And honestly, your brain hates that, because sudden change feels dangerous. The moment you try to change everything, your mind starts resisting. That's why motivation disappears so quickly. Kaizen can be translated as continuous improvement. Not massive improvement, not dramatic transformation. Continuous, small, steady. And that changes everything. Because Kaizen doesn't ask, how do I become perfect? It asks, how do I become slightly better today? Most people underestimate small actions because small actions don't feel impressive. Reading 5 pages feels meaningless. Doing 10 push-ups feels too easy. Practicing for 15 minutes feels insignificant. But here's what people miss. Big results are almost always invisible in the beginning. A tree doesn't grow overnight, and neither does a person. Your brain loves comfort. It wants easy pleasure, predictable routines, low effort. So when you suddenly say, "I'm changing my whole life," your brain reacts like, absolutely not. Kaizen works differently. It makes change so small that your brain doesn't panic. And that's the genius of it. People think disciplined individuals have more motivation. Usually, they don't. They simply reduce resistance. Instead of saying, "I'll study for 4 hours," Kaizen says, study for 5 minutes. And strangely, that tiny action often becomes bigger naturally, because starting is the hardest part. Most people fail, not because they can't improve, but because they try to improve too aggressively. They create impossible standards, perfect morning routines, perfect diets, perfect consistency. And the moment they fail once, they quit completely. Kaizen removes perfection from the equation. Here's something powerful. Every repeated action teaches your brain who you are. If you read every day, you begin seeing yourself as a reader. If you train consistently, you begin seeing yourself as disciplined. Identity doesn't change through motivation. It changes through repetition. Imagine improving only 1% every day. It sounds tiny, almost meaningless. But over time, that becomes a completely different life. The problem is, people want visible transformation immediately. Kaizen is slower, but much more real. A lot of self-improvement today is built on self-hatred. People think, I need to become someone else. But Kaizen is different. It says you don't need to destroy yourself to improve yourself. And that difference matters, because sustainable growth comes from patience, not punishment. So, how do you actually use this? Simple. First, make the task smaller than your excuses. Second, focus on repetition, not intensity. Third, stop waiting for motivation. Fourth, allow imperfect progress. And fifth, think in years, not days. That's how real change happens. Quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. Kaizen is not exciting. And maybe that's why it works. Because real transformation usually looks boring while it's happening. Small actions, repeated daily, again and again, until one day you realize you became a different person, not through one massive moment, but through hundreds of tiny ones.
One of the biggest lies in self-improvement sounds like this. You need to feel motivated first. But think about your own life. How many times were you motivated and still did nothing? And how many times did you do something even when you didn't feel like it? Motivation is emotional. Kaizen is structural. And that's the difference. Motivation changes every single day. Systems don't.
People want transformation to feel dramatic, but real growth usually feels repetitive. Wake up, do the small thing, repeat. That's it. And honestly, most people quit because it feels too boring. But boring is powerful, because boring things can be repeated. And repeated actions are what change your life. Your brain is constantly collecting evidence about who you are. Every small action says something. When you keep promises to yourself, even tiny ones, your brain notices. And slowly, you begin trusting yourself again. And that trust becomes confidence. Not fake confidence. Real confidence. The kind built through evidence.
Kaizen isn't only about productivity. It can change your health, your mindset, your relationships, your environment, your emotional stability. Even cleaning one small part of your room can change how your mind feels, because small external changes often create internal changes too.
Modern culture worships fast success, instant results, instant money, instant transformation. But nature doesn't work like that. Seasons change slowly. Trees grow slowly. And people heal slowly too. Kaizen reminds you, slow progress is still progress. And maybe moving slowly forward is better than constantly starting over.
One more thing. People often think change has to feel intense to be real, so they push themselves harder. More goals, more pressure, more self-criticism. But usually, that only creates exhaustion, not transformation. Because when every day feels like a battle against yourself, eventually, your mind wants to escape. That's why people keep falling into the same cycle. Extreme motivation, extreme pressure, then complete burnout. Again and again. Kaizen breaks that cycle because it replaces pressure with consistency. And consistency is much more powerful than intensity.
Here's what most people don't realize. Your life changes the moment your daily actions change. Not instantly, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly. And over time, those tiny, repeated actions become your identity. You don't suddenly become a different person one morning. You become different through repetition, through ordinary days, through small decisions nobody sees. That's the beauty of Kaizen. It doesn't ask you to become perfect tomorrow. It simply asks, what small step can you continue today? And honestly, that's enough.
So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop trying to change your entire life overnight. Real change usually happens quietly, almost invisibly. One small action, then another one, and another, until one day you look back and realize you became a different person. Not because you did something massive, but because you kept moving, even slowly, even imperfectly. And maybe all you need to do today is simply start with something small. Thank you for watching. And remember, you do not need to destroy yourself to change your life.